Howdy, I'm Mark and we're back with Parish Conversations. Today I'm with Jennifer Kelly, who wears a lot of hats around here, and I'll actually let you explain some of the things that you do.
Thanks, Mark. It's great to be with you. Up in my office that I kind of feel like is a bit like Rapunzel's tower.
It does feel
by
a bit
the
like
choir
that, doesn't
loft.
it?
I love it. Well, JRJI stands for Jesuit Restorative Justice Initiative. And restorative justice is a really beautiful concept that recognizes the organic and interrelated nature of all humanity, including people who are either victims, offenders, or community who are affected by crime. So restorative justice seeks to recognize that healing can only happen when all of the people impacted by crime are healed. And so restorative justice tries to seek practices that bring the full humanity and healing possibility back to all the constituents. So after Mass, the men were showing me sound equipment and where the concert would take place. And I was talking with a few of the gentlemen and asking about what kind of supports they receive in prison. And I said, I imagine it's difficult to do your time well. They were sharing various things. I asked, do you ever have retreats? And then I said, do you ever have Ignatian retreats? And a lifer named Bill, I've gotten permission to use his first name from the DOC. A lifer named Bill, just a tall man, and his eyes opened wide, and he leaned over at me and he said, an Ignatian retreat? An Ignatian retreat? I've been praying for one for years. In fact, I have a copy of the exercises, and I've led myself through 3 times. And when I shared with Scott what happened and what was going on, I said, you know, Scott, I don't know if you're thinking about bringing this ministry north, but if you ever do, I would be so honored to support you and help. And he actually kind of started to laugh a little bit. He laughed and he got this big grin and he said, Jennifer, actually, this has been a dream of mine for a long time, and there's no Jesuit to do it, so we want to ask you to found it for us. So that was not what I was expecting. It took 18 months to cultivate relationships with Monroe. We had our first retreat, Ignatian-style retreat, in October of 2016. The DOC chaplain at first said, you'll be lucky if you have 6 to 8. And we had, I think it was 28 at our first retreat. And we grew to maximum at most retreats. And we're now in 3 units at Monroe. And we were just going to give our first retreat at Coyote Ridge Correctional Facility, and then the pandemic. So we will be going there.
So I've been thinking about this a lot, about how COVID has changed how we accompany folks who are incarcerated. So how are you seeing people adapt to prison accompaniment and prison ministry during COVID? I mean, is it a wait and see? Is it a, just pray like crazy? How are you adapting?
You know, it's tough, but we had a little miracle for JRJI Northwest in that what I learned from Father Mike and the team in LA, some very basic things that are part of the retreats. And one are sign-in sheets where when people come to the retreat, they write their full name and their DOC number. Why? Well, in California, there's still all kinds of possibility for parole, and so programming can make a difference. Here in Washington State, we don't have that. People do their time. Nevertheless, I decided to always record every retreat because laws are changing. And I start the retreat by telling the men, and women occasionally, here's why we're inviting you to sign in. Because if laws ever change, I'll be able to provide all the dates and times, etc. So pandemic comes, and in Washington State, if you provide programming on the inside, you are absolutely not allowed to write, call, or have any contact, right? So we're immediately locked out, and I'm thinking, at first, what do we do? Feeling totally paralyzed. And this little light bulb went on, and I thought, that's what we need. We need spiritual pastoral triage for people behind bars, and I need some first responders. And I remembered the lists I have. And so I thought, I wonder if I could start a correspondence program. The men won't know it's coming, but I could find writers who would write and say, I'm going to write to you for the length of time that JRJI is locked out. So I decided to call the program Blessed and Beloved because people both the men inside are from a lot of different spiritual traditions, as are writers. And in the trainings, I wanted to impart to people that this isn't about evangelizing or religious education or proselytizing. It's about bearing witness that you are a child of God just by our presence.
Right.
So everyone's blessed and beloved. So that's the title of the program. We had, I think, I had 25 volunteers in the first week. And then people started inviting people who started inviting people. So we have 69 writers right now.
Oh my goodness.
And we can still use more if anyone's interested, because my list had, I'm trying to remember, 200 and something men and women had made retreats through JRJI. And so I went through, it took forever looking up each number and discovering 169 people who'd made our retreats are still behind bars, right? Well, and you know from your work how many people that I meet inside, you've met inside, where you think, but for the grace of God, there would go I. Everything from poverty, racism, trauma in the homes, addiction, mental health issues, whether themselves or their parents, generations of incarceration, the disadvantage of so many of the people behind bars that they've experienced, educational deficits. I mean, we could just go on and on.
We could, and not to mention then you add in the prison industrial complex,
Yes.
and the fact that a very few people are making lots and lots of money off of locking up a lot of folks, most of whom are Black and brown.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
The spiritual directors and volunteers who come in and the writers, they become voices in our community about mass incarceration, about humanizing people behind bars, and that feels like a beautiful seedling of kind of another branch that we will want to expand in JRJI someday, as well as advocacy and political action. And
How's my hair?
your hair's great. How's my hair?
Great.
Okay.
Fabulous.
And thank you. I fixed it. Do you try to look at the camera sometimes while you're talking or not? Okay.
Sometimes.
All right.
Yeah. I try and do this summer. I'm working on my
Getting used
talk
to
show persona.
Yeah, because Glenn was pretty good at that, wasn't he?